Well, the first time around I did strength and spine, which was after last triathlon season came to a wrap, I put on a lot of very symmetrical muscle that I actually like. I was going on a winter trip to somewhere warm, and I was like trying on a bathing suit, and I was like, oh my gosh, my back looks actually significantly more even, and all like the depression in the lower right spine where the concavity is wasn't there anymore. And that's a very big deal because living with scoliosis, we're kind of used to like, all right, one side smush and one is not smushed.
Mhm.
So it's nice for my, that kind of self-confidence.
Welcome back to Stronger Than the Curve. This is our series sharing people's scoliosis stories, a little bit about their experience, what they're doing, and just to give more stories out there about people with scoliosis doing cool things. So we have Arianna on today. Thank you for joining us.
Hi, thank you for welcoming me to speak a little bit about my experience.
Yes, so I'd love to hear a little bit more about your scoliosis experience so far, maybe a little bit about your diagnosis and kind of go from there.
Sure. So I have idiopathic scoliosis. I got diagnosed around 14 or 15, which I think is pretty common. I have a right thoracic curve that's in like the high 40s, low 50s, depending on who reads the x-ray. And my lumbar curve is in the low 30s, also depending on who reads the x-ray. I think living with scoliosis as a younger person, especially as a teenager, was really hard because I was only told that you would have to have surgery or get a brace. And both of those things as a teenage girl are not particularly exciting to hear. I did not wear my brace very often. And then as I got into my mid and late 20s, I was pretty pissed off at myself that I didn't wear my brace very often. But I'm a very active athlete. And so surgery, especially spinal fusion, which was what was offered to me rather than the ASC surgery because my spine is quite rigid, also didn't seem like an option either.
Absolutely. So it sounds like you had the treatment with the brace, maybe didn't do as much, but kept up with your sport. So tell us a little bit about the sports that you do, kind of like your lifestyle.
So I'm very active. I rode horses for most of my life, and I used to compete as well. So that was kind of my primary sport. And as I've moved into my career, that's kind of, I still ride horses, but that's a little bit gone by the wayside. I compete in triathlon throughout the summer, biking, running, swimming. I ski in the winter time. I lift weights almost year round. I like yoga. I've got into Pilates recently, which I love. I rock climb, trying to think what else. Mountain bike sometimes. Any other looming sports. Um, I love dirt bikes and motorcycles too. So
It's great. Yeah. So with all of that, how did you feel? Was your scoliosis stopping you from doing any of those things? Were you running into any trouble because of your scoliosis?
scoliosis is really funny for me because for movement, no. If I could move every day and I could just keep my spine supple and stretch and engage my muscles, I would probably be fine. But with work, I work full time as a social worker. I'm sitting a lot and I'm driving a lot. That's where most of my back problems really flared up. I mean, I work sometimes 40 plus, often 40 plus hours a week as well. So that's where I kind of thought things are not working so well into adulthood. Um, yeah.
What had you tried? Like you started having some pain with working. What had you tried for that? Had you done any PT or anything for it?
I did troth when I was younger and I did yoga for scoliosis. So I tried that. I got into weightlifting when I was younger, mostly with like for physique building. So my core was generally quite strong and my posterior chain was generally very, very strong. So I noticed that, if I was exercising like glutes, hams, um, lower back and core, that was really, really helpful. I'm trying to think what else. Just like moving, stretching, hanging, rock climbing is awesome, especially bouldering, where like everything's getting stretched in one direction and the other, and it's also strengthening at the same time. I think what else has been helpful? Swimming. Swimming's huge. That's also, and I went to speak with a surgeon, and he said, well, if you're not going to get surgery, you should at least be swimming several days a week. So I try to swim all summer long and drive down to a pool now and then in the winter too.
That's great. So you found some things that were helping with the stiffness and things with work. So what made you think about wanting to incorporate more strength training and kind of learning more about us as strength and spine?
Well, I think the biggest thing was that I was strength training and I was using a book called originally like the Strong Curves program, which is really just physique building for, more upper like V hourglass figure. And that was working really well. But sometimes I come away from my exercises with a little bit of pain. And I just kind of digging around because I felt like there's a lot of knowledgeable people and there must be other people who have scoliosis that have got into a movement-based profession who might have some more ideas than I do.
Awesome. Yeah. So it sounds like you were already working out, but there was something missing, right? Like you kept running into like the typical fitness routine wasn't addressing what you felt you needed for your scoliosis.
Yeah, and I love exercise. I'm like an exercise nerd, and I know like scoliosis are, for our concave side, that's very weak generally, and I know that our concavity, this muscle that pulls in is often really over tightened and shortened. So I knew like I had to be doing something that would be lengthening and strengthening certain areas and tightening other areas. That's just not my expertise. So that's why I poked around and I found Beth.
Awesome. Awesome. So, I think you mentioned some of this a little bit, but what stood out to you about working with us or doing something that was a little bit more scoliosis specific? I think you mentioned about like you noticed the imbalance side to side, but were there other things that you felt were missing that you needed to work on?
Well, the balance is a big part. And the other thing too was, I think when you look for scoliosis treatment, it's very like fractured. Like if you're going to a doctor, it's like you're going to get surgery or, well, you're just going to be screwed in later life. And it's usually these what are the surgeons for, orthopedic surgeons who don't live with scoliosis, probably don't have anyone close to them who has scoliosis. And they're telling me to do this life altering thing, which is not guaranteed to reduce pain. And reduces mobility. So that for me, I wanted to hear from people who actually had lived experience and had lived the thing and done the thing themselves. And I like that Beth also has scoliosis. So I thought, okay, I can trust her, and I know that she knows what she's doing.
Yeah, that was one of the big things for me when I started specializing in scoliosis was I had already been weight training and I didn't realize how much my curve was affecting the things I was doing. I always noticed like, why am I always turning this way when I lift the weight? Or why am I always feeling this more in one muscle than the other? But until I was introduced to scoliosis and like you said, how the muscles are imbalanced, it wasn't until then that it all kind of came together.
Yeah, it's definitely kind of a mystery. And it's unfortunate that we don't get more education on our backs, especially when we're teenagers and we're usually pretty active. I feel like they could do a lot more, physical strength-based interventions that would probably give people a better quality of life rather than sending folks straight to surgery.
Yes, absolutely. I think that there's not enough in terms of promoting activity for people with scoliosis. There's still a lot of practitioners that tell you, okay, either avoid activity or avoid doing weight training, just focus on stretching, don't do these type of things. So we definitely need to keep getting out there. Like, yes, being active is important when you have scoliosis, and working with resistance to strengthen your muscles is important. So you've worked with us for a little bit. I know some of people who are maybe considering working with us in the scoliosis program are a little nervous about it being completely online. Obviously for us, like we don't live near each other. So did you have any reservations about doing something online?
Yeah, I think I did. and also because I'm not a big phone person, so I use like the app on the computer, and my phone's so old that it can't have the app for strength and spine. But that should be most folks' issue. So I found that it actually was completely fine, and I could send videos in, and Beth and her team were really responsive. I sent a lot more videos in initially when I started. Now I'm very busy with work and I don't send as many videos in. But it's definitely, the exercises are easy to follow. Having a mirror is helpful too at your gym. But yeah, it works.
Great. What was something that you learned about yourself or your curve through the program that you didn't really know before?
A big one for me was the idea of like the not only doing the like Schroth expansive breathing, but also doing some of the rotational breathing. And that was really big for me in like things like lat pull downs and even on pull-ups as well. Just knowing that I can kind of move the spine around a little bit. I also incorporate a little bit of the propping from the Schroth exercises that you give even into my weight training. And I've learned a lot about like what muscles, like this right muscle from the right thoracic curve likes to be really tight up here. So lengthening the muscles first and doing all the extensions and then exercising is pretty big.
I love that. Yeah, being able to kind of take, you had already done some Schroth from when you were a teen and how to now incorporate that into what you're doing with the resistance training. So you get even more that benefit.
Yeah, it's definitely, it's big. Yeah.
Awesome. Awesome. Um, what did having the guidance change for you? Because you were already active, right? Like, did you feel that? How did you feel about adding the coaching piece to it?
I liked it. It was good to have just an incentive, like, okay, I'm not the only person who's, keeping track and incentivizing me to go to the gym. Because especially winters, I live up in Maine and they get really cold and dark, and I try to maybe get to the gym once a week, especially on those longer, darker weeks. So it was nice just knowing like I have a routine, you're gonna do it, you're gonna get feedback, you're putting the time in and you're getting someone's response too.
Yes, having the accountability, right? Of like, okay, this person is here, they're checking in with me. Not that, I don't want to let them down with my exercises. Not that I get upset with anybody, but it's nice to have that accountability piece.
Yeah. And I think scoliosis is like, if we're going to work and we're sitting, like those movements that we do in the day to day are automatically counting against us. So each day that you don't actually strengthen and lengthen is it's really time that you're leaving on the table.
Yes, I think so too. I think even incorporating some of the postural cues throughout your day and like being aware of those can be very helpful too.
Yeah.
Yeah. What have you noticed in terms of changes with your routine or like posture, pain, performance? What have you noticed since you've been incorporating some of our workouts?
Like I was backpacking this past winter and ski touring, and I felt I had very little to no back pain, which was because I put on so much muscle in my back, um, which was good.
That's
Yeah.
awesome. So you saw some postural change and then also less pain with backpacking and all that stuff.
Yes, for sure. For sure.
Awesome. Awesome. And it didn't really take too long, I would say. I think we worked together initially for a few months. So
I
you
don't
picked it up pretty quickly.
And I also was doing the calorie tracking, and the macro tracking was really big. I'm a big under eater, and that doesn't serve you when you're lifting and putting on muscle. So I really was able to eat a lot and to meet my calories and my protein levels, and that helped out significantly.
Yes, it was great that we could help you with that too, especially for putting on muscle. It's important that you have the right nutrition to be able
That's
to
the
do that.
biggest challenge for me. Like even if I'm not tracking it every day, because I'm a busy person and I get very focused on what I'm doing and I forget to eat. So it's a big one.
Yes. Yes, I know that too. The stomach starts rumbling. You're like, forgot to eat.
Yeah.
So if you were talking to someone who has scoliosis, maybe they're just diagnosed or, they're not knowing what to do, what would you tell them, or what words of advice would you give them?
First, it is okay. There's a lot of people who live with scoliosis. There are a lot of us. And there are people who, no matter what choice they make, are living really happy, fulfilled lives. So it's not the end of the day. But it is really important to lift weights and to get very, very strong because we can change our posture, and we can change even our scoliosis at times to certain degrees through movement, and we can manage pain. Sorry.
Awesome. And if you were talking to someone who's considering maybe working with us here at Strength and Spine, but they're on the fence or they're not sure, what would you tell them?
Just try it for a couple months. Give it a shot. You're probably going to love it. The program is very effective. The coaches are great. If you have any feedback, so you need to modify exercises, they listen, they change it immediately. And if you follow with the program, you will get results.
Awesome. Thank you so much for taking the time to share your story, to share a little bit about your experience. Is there anything that you want to add, or do you have any closing words for us?
Um, just stay strong. It is possible to live with scoliosis and chronic pain and be really strong and not let it get in the way of your day. So,
Yes. Yes. I think you're a great example of that. Sharing all the sports that you do, from triathlon all the way through rock climbing, and that you're doing that with your scoliosis curve, right? In spite of your scoliosis curve, and keeping yourself strong and knowing, you know, it doesn't have to hold you back.
totally. And I will say, like, for folks, wear open back shirts. I wear open back shirts constantly, and I wear crop tops, and I wear all sorts of things. And be proud of who you are because we're all awesome. So,
Yes. I love that you added that. So many people that I talk to are afraid to show off their backs,
mhm.
and I'm like that too. I love to show my back, and I'm happy that now you have the confidence to do that too.
Yes.
Great. Thank you again so much for your time. And thank you for everyone who tuned in to this interview. If you have any questions, of course, leave us a comment, and we'll see you on the next episode of Stronger Than the Curve.
Thank you.